All right, here we go. Are we ready? Yes, we're ready. On today's show, Donald Trump pivots away from his base. Now, in the past 5 days, with numbers cratering, Trump has finally realized it's not just his crowds that are getting smaller. His base isn't big enough. I mean, they're all big, they're huge individually, but in terms of a voting bloc, he doesn't have enough to win. So he's in panic mode, talking out of both sides of his ass, saying whatever pops into that enfeebled brain of his. He's saying whatever it takes to win over anyone. Last week, he made a clean break with the pro-life movement. He is now saying that his administration will guarantee reproductive rights to women. J.D. Vance said Sunday that Trump would veto a national abortion ban. This is really desperate on Donald Trump's behalf. They've turned into a sweat act. He's pissing off his evangelical base. Now, Vance said he opposes abortion, even in the case of rape and incest. But now, on Sunday, he's assuring voters, don't worry, Trump would veto a national abortion ban. Trump is caught right now between a rock and a hard place when it comes to abortion. Kind of like a 16-year-old girl in Texas carrying her stepfather's baby. Trump knew at the beginning of the year that abortion would drag him down. He thought calling abortion a states' right issue would thread the needle, but it's not working. The white women are abandoning him, and he cannot win without ignorant white women. So now he's pushing reproductive freedom. The problem for him is women don't believe Donald Trump, and conservatives feel betrayed. I talked about the National Review on the last show going after him for turning his back on the pro-life movement. Then, on Thursday, Trump told Fox and Friends that cops should be able to confiscate the guns of criminals. This is huge. Now, the election was not supposed to be about the assault weapons ban, let alone the government coming for your guns. But after Trump got shot, Biden and now Harris put the assault weapons ban on the menu, and it's resonating with voters. Right after Trump got shot, Republicans insisted that photo of him with his clenched fist, they said that's iconic, that he looked like Superman. And they said because Trump survived that assassination attempt, he won in November. You might remember, however, that right after he was shot, I said no. I said getting shot makes Trump look weak. It makes him look like a loser. And it makes him look stupid. It makes his position on assault weapons look dumb. No presidential candidate has taken more money from the NRA than Donald Trump. So getting shot by an assault weapon makes him look incredibly stupid and dangerous for the rest of us. The polls now reflect this. That election in November was never supposed to be about guns until he got shot. And voters thought, you know what? Maybe we do need to do something about guns. Biden, to his credit, immediately after Trump was shot, Biden seized on it and called for an assault weapons ban. Biden politicized the assassination attempt, even though everybody said, you shouldn't politicize it. Of course you should. It was the right thing to do. And Trump is stupid, but he's not an idiot. He knows now that this country wants common sense gun laws. More now since he's been shot. That's why he said last Thursday, Chicago cops should be able to take guns away from criminals on the street. Now, his dog whistle was black people shouldn't be allowed to own guns. But that won't fly with the incredibly racist NRA. Even the incredibly racist NRA doesn't like that racist dog whistle. It was a stupid thing to say politically, but he had no choice. He had to make it racist. He had to say, take the guns away from street criminals in Chicago, because for his base, he's only justified in flip-flopping on the Second Amendment if it's rooted in racism, fear of black men. Now, of course, the right thing to do would have been calling for sensible gun control, but Trump can't do that. He's beholden to the NRA and the gun manufacturers. So in panic mode, on Thursday, he just went with take guns away from black people. And now he's on record saying the government should confiscate our guns. What he meant was just the guns of black people. He said Chicago cops should start taking guns away from street criminals, but that still means he wants to confiscate the guns. This is desperation. This is stupid. And now his signature issue, the migrants. I was rewatching a recent press conference, the one last week in Bedminster, and he said something, and I went, what? Wait, what just happened here? Trump is now reversing himself at what brung him to the dance, the migrant crisis. A little later on in the show, I'm going to play some clips of Donald Trump now saying stuff about the migrants that will blow you away. He's talking about how we need more people in this country, that we're having a population implosion. Gee, where have you heard that before? In just 5 days, Trump has pivoted away from his base on abortion, guns, and now migrants. He is all over the map on issues because Kamala Harris is all over the electoral map with votes. Now, this is the guy who famously doubled down on his worst instincts and refused to change course. It's no longer working. While he's busy calling Kamala Harris a flip-flopper, it's Trump who's flipping and flopping like a fish out of water, gasping for oxygen. This is the mop-up for August 26, 2024. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you so much for finding me. If you would like to remain in my feed, subscribe to this channel, and of course, like this episode. That is the most efficient way to make sure you get my most recent episodes, like this one, and of course, copy and paste the link to this specific episode, please, and share it via text, email, or on social media. The best way to help me is to share this. This is a grassroots show. Nobody's helping me other than you, my listeners, and Robert Smigel and Sam Cedar. But this is the reason you're watching it is because somebody was kind enough to share this. And if you would like a transcript, a free transcript of today's episode, go to shopdavidfeldman.com. Transcripts are free thanks to my listeners who purchase garbage like this, the worst case scenario map. It's a map on a mug. It's a souvenir of the 2024 presidential election. I made it for my sister, and I'm making it for my listeners. It reminds you that Harris cannot lose. If the worst she can do is 270, and all you need is 270, you can buy that over at shopdavidfeldman.com, or if you want to hurt my feelings, go buy the chef's apron with the words, "I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea," which it's my biggest seller. It's like masturbating with sandpaper. It's just like, hey, I sold a chef's apron with the words, "I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea." At first, it feels great. I made a sale, and then I see what it was, and I hate myself. Well, the Harris campaign, speaking of money, says they've raised $82 million during last week's convention. Since becoming the presumptive nominee, that brings her haul to a record-setting $540 million. Trump is not coming close. The Harris campaign, both Harris and Walz, they take their fight to battleground state Georgia starting on Wednesday, where Trump is leading Harris in the polling averages by 4 points. Okay, why is this incredibly significant? As of this morning, this is this is amazing. As of this morning, Harris cannot win Georgia. Of the 7 key battleground states, Georgia is the unlikeliest for her to pick up as of this morning. So, at first blush, one would ask, what the hell is she and Walz doing? What are they doing wasting time in Georgia? There's an election to be won. I'll tell you in a second. It's brilliant and exciting. Look, Georgia is going to be the hardest of the battleground swing states for her to win. Everything is stacked against her in Georgia. In 2020, Biden was the first Democrat to win Georgia since 1992. Why did Biden win Georgia? What's going on? I was thinking long and hard, and I figured it out last week. Why did he win Georgia? And then it occurred to me there were two Senate races in Georgia back in 2020. Remember? Democrats Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, they both ran for Senate in Georgia, and they flipped those seats blue. And Biden rode their coattails that year. Very important. But in 2024, by the way, you should say that when you talk to people, you'll sound really, I think that's, I don't think anybody's saying that, and I think you can impress people at work by repeating that. But in 2024, that's why you should get transcripts for the show and just underline things I say and bring it up in conversation, and you'll get a raise. In 2024, no marquee down ballot races in Georgia this time around for Harris to ride the updraft. Plus, thanks to Republican Governor Brian Kemp, Georgia has some of the most restrictive voting laws in the country, making it incredibly hard for people of color to cast their ballots. So, of the 7 key battleground states, Georgia is the toughest, tougher than Arizona. What the hell is she doing down there this week with Coach Walz? The fact that Harris and Coach Walz are making joint appearances in Georgia throughout the week before Labor Day scares the hell out of Donald Trump. That's partly why she's wasting her time in Georgia. Okay? What is she doing there? She's making Trump crap his pants, which, as we all know, isn't that hard to pull off. Harris and Coach Walz in Georgia so soon signals to Trump the polls she's looking at are solid, especially in Pennsylvania, even though the polls we're looking at shows Pennsylvania still a toss-up. But she's going to win Pennsylvania. But if she's in Georgia this early, that means the polls she's looking at, see, she sees better polls than I see. She's looking at polls telling her that North Carolina is settled law. I already told you that. But she's looking at polls that show Arizona and Nevada are looking way better than anybody realizes. By going down to Georgia this week, she's saying Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, and yes, Pennsylvania are all a lock. So what makes Harris so confident? What makes her so confident when the polls in all these swing states are still within the margin of error. If you look at the polls in all the swing states, Harris, while leading in most, we're not seeing blowouts. Most of them are within the margin of error. So why does Harris think she's doing so much better than the polls are telling us in the swing states? Why is she taking the fight to Georgia? To scare Trump. But here's the real reason, and I hope this helps you follow the election closer, what to pay attention to. I cannot stress this enough, okay? Harris knows she's poised to win all the key battleground states except Georgia, because all the key battleground states have marquee down ballot races for Senate or in North Carolina for governor. And those down ballot Democratic candidates, every single one of them, they are all blowing out their Republican challengers. This is why she's in Georgia. She knows it's time to open up the map before Labor Day. All of them. Ohio is not a swing state. Forget Ohio. But Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown, running for re-election, is blowing away Bernie Moreno. Harris will never win Ohio as of this morning. But Sherrod Brown's numbers in late August suggest otherwise. If between now and October 1st, if Donald Trump so much as steps foot in Ohio, if Trump Force One even flies over Ohio, he knows he's lost. If Trump has to take the fight to Ohio, he's lost, especially now with J.D. Vance, the junior senator from Ohio, being on the ticket. If Trump ever campaigns in Ohio, it is incredible. But here's why I think, and this is me smoking a joint, not really, but this is, here's why Ohio might be in play. And remember, last year they enshrined abortion into the Constitution in Ohio. So we're not looking at the same Ohio 2 years ago, back in 2022, when J.D. Vance was elected to the Senate from Ohio. By the way, he served fewer than 2 years so far in public office. He's less qualified than Sarah Palin, but more hated. Okay, if you think Trump has buyer's remorse over J.D. Vance, imagine how the voters in Ohio feel. Remember, they elected him in 2022. He said against abortion, even in the case of rape and incest. In 2023, Ohio voters enshrined abortion into their state constitution. Different state. He is the most hated politician in America, the most hated running mate in modern American history, worse than Sarah Palin. Al Gore in 2000 lost his home state of Tennessee. A lot of times, or sometimes, voters will turn on their favorite sons. If Democrat Sherrod Brown in Ohio is polling this well right now, this election, at least in Ohio, could turn into a referendum on J.D. Vance. Again, this is an absolute long shot. Ohio has 17 electoral votes. She's not going to win as of today. But I'll go over some news we're getting this morning, and I can assure you, after Labor Day, I have absolutely no idea what this map will be looking like. It is shaping up to have untold possibilities for the Democrats. Now, on Friday, where am I? There we go. On Friday, I talked about the race for governor in North Carolina. Democrat Josh Stein is leading Republican Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson in that race by 14 points in the latest poll from High Point University. That's an A-plus poll. So forget that Harris is leading Trump by 2 in North Carolina. What you need to follow is the governor's race in North Carolina. Democrat Josh Stein will win this by a landslide, and he's bringing Harris along with him. She doesn't have to worry about North Carolina. Those 16 electoral votes are now set in stone. We have new polling this morning out of Michigan, fresh from the oven. Michigan, key, one part of the blue wall, 1/3 of the blue wall. New polling shows Democrat Elisa Slotkin running for Democrat Debbie Stabeno's seat. Slotkin is now leading her challenger by 10 points. Okay? Elisa Slotkin is leading her challenger by 10 points. She's sending out emails saying it's tied. Everybody's tied, everybody's losing because they want you to donate money, but she's leading, according to the latest poll, by 10 points. So forget the polling averages showing Harris winning Michigan by just 2, which is in the margin of error. If Slotkin is ahead by 10, Harris knows she's won Michigan. I don't know what polls, they get better polls at the DNC. So I have to figure some of this stuff out. I pay for a YouGov poll, which helps me kind of see what they're saying. But if Slotkin is ahead by 10, Harris knows she's won in Michigan. She still has to campaign there. She's not going to pull a Hillary. She's still going to go to Michigan. And she's not going to win Michigan by 10, but all she needs is to just win Michigan. You win by 10 points, you win by 1 point, you win by 1/10 of a point, doesn't matter. You get to keep all of Michigan's 15 electoral votes. Not as much. Michigan doesn't have as many electoral votes as North Carolina or Georgia's 16 electoral votes or Pennsylvania's 19 electoral votes. But as of this morning, Michigan's 15 electoral votes are 15 electoral votes Kamala Harris no longer has to worry about, which is why she's not actually wasting time this week going down to Georgia with Coach Walz. Right now, she doesn't stand a chance of winning Georgia, but she's locking in states so early, she has time and money to expand the playing field. I cannot stress this enough. When you talk ground game, and elections are won on the ground, nothing helps your ground game more than a popular down-ballot candidate localizing the race on a granular level, selling both themselves and Kamala Harris. This is a key part of your ground game if you're running for president, being lucky enough to have down-ballot marquee races in key battleground states. And she's got them in 6 out of 7. Harris, and all the down-ballot candidates are winning. Harris doesn't have anything going for her in Georgia. So she has a much weaker ground game than Biden did 4 years ago. Stacey Abrams isn't running for governor of Georgia this cycle. They're not electing governors in Georgia this cycle. And as I said earlier, John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock aren't running for Senate this cycle. That's in 2 more years. She's all alone. Well, actually, no. Warnock beat Herschel Walker in 2022. Don't worry. There's no down ballot marquee race in Georgia. She's all alone in Georgia, except for Tim Walz, Bill, Hillary, the Bidens, the Obamas, and Little John. Putting Georgia into play this early spreads Trump way too thin, way too early. Trump doesn't have the money or the surrogates or boots on the ground to take this fight to Georgia. He's still playing catch up in North Carolina, which is a lost cause. And he's desperately trying to flip Pennsylvania, and that's not going to happen. We now hear Trump is trying to put the pedal to the metal, but he's out of gas. You know it. He knows it. He's stale. He's old. He's tired. He's musty. The act it's stale. The crowds have thinned out, and they don't stay for his entire speech. But he's desperate. He's desperate now through October 1st. He is scheduling nonstop rallies from now until October 1st throughout the 7 key battleground states, while at the same time preparing for the September 10th debate, which he's terrified about because that's his last and only chance to change the narrative. After the debate, which is not going to go the way he wants, Trump will have no choice after the debate. He'll have no other choice than switching to full stolen election mode. And that's going to piss off Brian Kemp in Georgia. He will have no other options after the September 10th debate. The only thing he can do then is start claiming voter fraud. Trump's rallies are already sad. He can't fill rooms the way he used to. But he's got to go out there and start playing to half-filled gymnasiums. His ego will not be able to handle this. He cannot take the lack of enthusiasm for him and the euphoria for her. Here's what's going to happen on October 1st when he realizes he's lost. There will be no more rallies after October 1st. Catch him while you can. He's just going to sit starting October 1st in Mar-a-Lago, phoning into Fox and Friends, claiming voter fraud. So, more on this in a second. I'm going to piss a lot of my listeners off right now, but this is what I believe. What's going on right now is why I don't think the Electoral College is all that bad an idea. I know I'm going to hear from everybody. The Electoral College tests a candidate's ability to solve puzzles and, of course, wage war. I get a lot of pushback from people I really respect, people who give me marching orders. You know, I get marching orders from people, and they think I'm a fool for saying this, but they haven't convinced me otherwise. I don't think the Electoral College is as unfair as Democrats say it is. In fact, I like the Electoral College because it assesses a candidate's proficiency at figuring stuff out. Presidents wage war, real war and metaphorical war. They have to solve impossible puzzles like the Middle East, Ukraine, and our tax code. And if you can't figure out how to win this map, I'm not sure you deserve to be president. All my friends, and I know all my listeners, disagree. They insist the Electoral College is a holdover from slavery to protect plantation owners from the tyranny of large northeastern states. I get that, and so is the Senate. Okay? And Jim Crow is a holdover. The filibuster is a holdover from Jim Crow. I understand that. And the Supreme Court is to placate the slave owners. I understand all this, but this is now the 21st century, and without an electoral college, candidates for president would remain planted in Washington, D.C., New York, California, Illinois, Texas, and Mar-a-Lago, racking up the popular vote with large billion-dollar ad buys and appearances on television and radio. There would be geographical inequality. I know people are angry that I believe this, so I'm sorry. If the Democrats, we always hear how dumb Republicans are and how smart the Democrats are. Well, if Democrats are so smart, then they should figure out this map. In fact, Democrats should stop complaining about how unfair the map is and just win it. They sound like Donald Trump when they talk about the Electoral College. They say, it's so unfair, it's stacked against us. Democrats should be able to win Indiana and Iowa. They used to win Indiana and Iowa. Obama did in 2008. George McGovern was from South Dakota. The Clintons were from Arkansas. Lyndon Johnson was from Texas. But now my party, the Democrats, can no longer win these states. Tennessee, Al Gore, right? Al Gore and Clinton won Tennessee in 92. Why can't they win these states? Because Al Gore and Bill Clinton turned their backs on the poor and the working class. The problem isn't the Electoral College. The problem is college. Too many college-educated Democrats who've turned their backs on people whose votes they can't debase themselves to ask for. It's demeaning for them to have to go to Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri. I mean, look at all the red on my worst-case scenario map, okay? Look how red this country is. That's your popular vote. So that's what look where the blue states are. And that's how you win the popular vote. Do you think that's fair? No Electoral College? You think it's fair just to have a handful of states deciding who the next president is? Too many college-educated Democrats can't bring themselves to go to Idaho, Wyoming, Kansas. If they'd go there, if they broke up the Ivy Leagues, which are monopolies, and made them spread their endowment throughout Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, Utah, Oklahoma, if we had, by the way, they have great colleges there. They just don't have Democrats who care about these people. We could have a permanent filibuster-proof majority in the Senate and never lose the White House if we stopped caring what the donor class and the professional managerial class thinks. If we cared only about the more than 50% of this country who can't come up with $500 for emergency, we'd win all those red states. And with that comes Medicare for all, free universal child care, free tuition at all public universities, and no billionaires. So, I don't want the largest states in the union dictating the presidency. I like the fact that Harris, Obama, and Hillary and Bill have to slum it in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And by the way, I checked, we're 2 hours away from the term slumming it, deemed socially unacceptable. So I'm getting it in while I still can. Let me return to the battlefield. And this is incredibly important. It's why I live for this stuff. This is the ultimate poker game. It's a game of poker. Harris doesn't have to win Georgia. Right now, Georgia is a feint. F-E-I-N-T. This is what Patton did. She's going down to Georgia with Tim Walz this week to drive Donald Trump insane by playing to huge crowds, much larger crowds than he can draw. She doesn't need to win Georgia. Right now, this is partly a feint. She just has to convince Trump that she thinks it's winnable. That's all she has to do. She has to make Trump think she's got an inside straight. Now, he's got his polls, she's got hers, you've got yours, I've got mine. Trump's polls, that's his hidden hand, and Harris's polls are her hidden hand. I'm mixing metaphors. It's poker, it's war, it's everything. So right now, we know he's winning in Georgia. It's impossible for her to win. But what she's doing by going to Georgia this week, it's a feint, it's a bluff. She's trying to convince him that the cards she's holding say otherwise, okay? It's poker, it's war, it's football. It ain't yoga. So by going to Georgia this week, it forces Trump to divert resources away from the blue wall, and he has to place more of his chips on Georgia. Okay, now it's a poker metaphor. Okay, look, I'm going to shut up with the metaphors. Look, sorry. This is just very exciting because we're winning. We're winning, and we're destroying Trump and the Republican Party. And I have bloodlust. We're winning at the polls, and this is exciting. I know elections are not games. Women are dying because they can't get abortions. There's an eviction crisis. Gaza and the planet Earth literally has 5 years left unless we put the oil companies out of business. I do understand that. Elections not only have consequences, they're the only way to solve these problems. You can't depend on the philanthropists. The only way you can solve climate catastrophe and make sure women aren't dying because they can't get an abortion in Texas, the only way to solve this is through elections, politics. And yes, it's tacky, reducing it all to a game of poker or battleship or Risk or football. But I'm in the penalty box, okay? But elections are either won or lost, which makes them a game at best, at worst, war, as we saw on January 6th. So you got to get worked up, and you got to see this as a game that you really want to win. So sending Harris and Walz down to Georgia this early is a diversionary tactic to confuse Trump, force him to run all over the map, chasing her in swing states he thought he had wrapped up 5 weeks ago. Like I said, by October 1st, Trump will be all out of gas. He'll have no idea where he's supposed to campaign. His ego is so fragile during the lead up to Election Day from October 1st until November 5th. He'll only do rallies where he can draw a crowd. Airplane hangars in Alabama, Mississippi, and North Dakota, where people will come see him because they've never saw a jet before. How do it stay in the air? They just can't believe that he's coming down from the sky like Deus Machina and stepping at a jet? It's the only way he can draw a crowd. Remember, Trump has zero firepower. He doesn't have anyone equivalent to the Obamas, the Clintons, the Bidens, Lil Jon, Bruce Springsteen, AOC, Doug Emhoff, Oprah, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, or Tony Goldwyn, the actor Tony Goldwyn. I'm going after Bradley Whitford tomorrow. I'm going to eviscerate Bradley Whitford tomorrow. Anyway, that's the firepower that Harris has. Who does Trump have? Mike Johnson, Mitch McConnell, Jim Jordan, Hulk Hogan? Okay, more exciting news this morning. I don't know if I can get to all of it. The Democratic Convention wrapped last Thursday, and we're about to start seeing polls that reflect the post-convention bounce. This is where it gets really great. Trump's top pollster, Fabrizio. Yes, he's named after the air freshener because he stinks, and everybody in Trump's orbit stinks. Fabrizio. Jesus. And people say I should change my name. Trump's top pollster warned, you might remember, he warned at the end of July, he warned, right after Harris became the presumptive nominee, he warned that August would be a cold month for Trump. Well, he got that right. It's colder than he thought it would be. Trump's pollster, Fabrizio, don't confuse him with his other pollster, Glade air freshener. Fabrizio? Where am I? Trump's pollster, Fabrizio, just issued a new memo. It got leaked. We got our hands on it. Fabrizio, the magnificent. Fabrizio is now warning the Trump campaign that Harris's post-convention bounce will be much higher and longer lasting than anticipated. In other words, her post-convention bounce, according to Fabrizio, the incredible, will extend. Fabrizio says her post-convention bounce will extend into Labor Day and beyond. Okay, enough with Fabrizio. Sorry. I'm sorry. If you listen to this show, then you know polls run hot for one candidate in July and August, and then they usually settle back down right after Labor Day, and the race traditionally reverts to something resembling a dead heat after Labor Day. Michael Dukakis, Hillary, Al Gore were all winning before Labor Day. Hillary and Al Gore actually won, but they didn't. Michael Dukakis didn't, but he should have. That's all for another show. So, Labor Day, this thing, as you know, is supposed to tighten by Labor Day. But now Trump's own pollster, I forgot his name, Trump's own pollster, Fabrizio. Fabrizio is telling the campaign, the Trump campaign, to prepare for news to get a lot worse after Labor Day. Now, I went over this on the last show. This is really important. Nearly half this country did mail-in ballots in 2020. Granted, it was because of COVID. But we're not going back. And if half the country last time cast absentee ballots, this time it's probably going to be a lot more, especially since Trump, among his many flip-flops, is now urging Republicans to cast absentee ballots. If this election is decided by absentee ballots, if we're getting more than half of the electorate casting absentee ballots, this election will be over weeks before Election Day. People will have already voted days, weeks, sometimes a month. I went over this. North Carolina, September 6th, they start getting, not North Carolina. Is it North Carolina? North Carolina gets their absentee ballots. I don't remember. What was it? Is it North Carolina? Somebody's getting their absentee ballots on September 6th. This means Trump is running out of time to turn this around. Like, he's got to do it before Labor Day. Before Labor Day, because of early voting now. The debate is September 10th. If the Harris momentum shows no sign of abating, and there's no reason to suggest it will, then mark my words, Trump's pre-debate spin starting on September 6th will be, I'm the underdog now. Watch, especially when it comes to the debate, he's going to build Harris up as a prosecutor and a terrific debater. He's going to still insist she's a low IQ individual, but somehow he's also going to prime the expectations game by accusing her of being an amazing debater. He'll call her one of the best ever. He's going to say, I'm terrified. He's going to plant stories that he's thinking of dropping out. This is the expectations game. He'll be telling everyone that he expects to trust me on this. He wants to lower the expectations so that if he does just okay in the debate, pundits theoretically would be tricked into calling it a win for him. But by then it won't matter. And especially because debates mean nothing to voters. They don't. We went over this. Biden's debate performance was a disaster. The worst ever. Worse than Gerald Ford's. Afterwards, he picked up independent voters. If you look at the polling, he picked up independent voters. Now, he was beginning to lose after the debate in the polls, but not because of the debate, because the entire Democratic leadership announced he was senile. That's what drags you down in the polls. Not enough people watched the debate for him to go down in the polls. It was Pelosi, Clooney, Obama, Barry Diller, MSNBC, seeing it, that's why his polls went down. Okay. Post-convention polls, right? We're looking for the post-convention bounce. They begin trickling in later this evening. By Wednesday, when Harris and Coach Walz take the fight down to Georgia, we could be looking at a map that's unrecognizable. An electoral map that includes, well, I already talked about Ohio. Let's not get ahead of ourselves on this. It's bad enough that I suggested Ohio could be in play, and that's irresponsible for me to say that. Honestly, it's not. It's not. But it could be by Wednesday, Thursday, when we get to read these polls. Now, we have our first post-debate national polling coming to us from Fairleigh Dickinson University this morning. It's fresh out of the oven. Fairleigh Dickinson University, there are thousands of pollsters out there. Fairleigh Dickinson, according to 538, Fairleigh Dickinson is in the top 30. So it's a good polling unit, reliable. It's not a 3-star polling operation like the Times, Siena, or the Washington Post. And of course, I pay for the YouGov polls. YouGov is state of the art. But Fairleigh Dickinson is fairly good. And I sound like a Dickinson. Okay. I got confused. I lost my train of thought because there's a pollster named Fabrizio. Okay. Now, Fairleigh Dickinson has a great poll. There are several universities that have slightly better track records than Fairleigh Dickinson: Marquette, Suffolk, Marist, Emerson, Monmouth, and the University of North Florida. Those are all great polling universities. But Fairleigh Dickinson comes pretty close, and they are, like I said, the very first post-convention national poll. It's the only thing we have to work with until later tonight. It is showing Trump losing to Kamala Harris by 7 points nationwide. Jim Carville, who's a disgrace, but he said the other day that if Harris can lead the national polls by 3%, that will give you a rough idea how she's going to do in the key battleground swing states. She needs to be leading in the polls by 3 in order to win the Electoral College. That's what he says polls traditionally depict, that the Electoral College is usually won by whomever wins the popular vote by 3%. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments section down below. I'm curious. This is our very first post-convention poll. Is it an outlier? Or is it, as Donald Trump's very own pollster, Glade Air Freshener, is that the name of Trump's pollster? It's Glade Air Freshener. Glade Air Freshener is warning that a poll like this, where Harris is up 7 points, is going to be emblematic of all the other polls coming in later tonight and throughout the week. Now listen to me. The clock is ticking. October, as I explained on the last show, it's no longer the October surprise, it's the September surprise. Everything's happening in September, okay? After Labor Day, because of early voting, the elections get set. People make up their minds the first half of September now, and then they start casting ballots. So it's too late for an October surprise. After Labor Day, if the polling averages look anything like this Fairleigh Dickinson poll, where Harris is winning nationally by 7 points, then all that matters is the Senate. It will be, by mid-September, after the debate, after September 10th, short of the stock market collapsing in September, not October, a terrorist attack in September, not October, short of that, or Donald Trump pulling something out of his hat. Maybe the great Fabrizio can teach him how to pull a rabbit out of his hat, and Donald Trump will do so great at the debate. I mean, he knocked out Biden theoretically, but it's not going to happen. It will be, on September 11th, it will be a given that Harris has won, and all that matters is making sure John Tester wins in Montana. I have some important stuff. I don't know where the time goes. I can't get to everything. I'm going to have to do a show tomorrow. Okay, as you know, if the election were held today, Democrats take the White House and the House, they lose the Senate. As of today, they're going to lose the Senate, which means divided government. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and Barack Obama all entered the White House with the trifecta. Their parties controlled the House and the Senate, and that allowed them to get things done their first 2 years in office. They had a mandate. Then the midterms come around, and they lose either the House or the Senate, and we have divided government, and everything becomes a battle, okay? The first 2 years of a presidency that's when things get done. As my listeners know, there are 7 Senate seats this election cycle that are toss-ups, and Democrats must win all 7 or they lose the Senate. The polling now shows Democrats will win 6 out of those 7. It's incredible that they're doing this well. Montana, where Democrat Jon Tester is running for re-election, is going to be incredibly hard. Montana, Trump won Montana by 16 points, I think, in 2020. Some polls show him beating Biden. I haven't seen anything about him up against Harris. He was beating Biden by 20 points. So, but there is some polling showing Tester winning by 5 points, as long as the people of Montana don't realize their vote will determine control of the Senate. The polling is the people of Montana will reelect Jon Tester as long as it's not up to them to decide the Senate. This is why he's not nationalizing his race. He didn't show up to the convention, and he hasn't officially endorsed Harris, which he can't. Somebody complained, I wouldn't donate to Jon Tester. He won't endorse Harris. He can't. This is a state where Trump was beating Biden by 20 points. Are you stupid? Do you want control of the Senate? Of course he's not going to endorse Harris. He's not Joe Manchin. He didn't hold up any bills in the Senate the way Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin did, even though he's in the toughest. He's got the toughest seat to win. This is a good man. And if he loses the Senate, President Harris, her agenda arrives dead on arrival. She will not be able to keep her promises if the Republicans control the Senate. So I'm doing phone banking for Jon Tester this Tuesday. I've told everybody, spend a week in Montana. You got to do it now. One of my listeners hooked me up with the Tester campaign, and they called me, and I spoke to the Tester campaign. Tuesday, I'm attending a Zoom meeting with the Tester campaign along with other campaign workers, and they're going to coach us on how to do the phone banking. And on Wednesday's show, I will report back to you. One of my longtime listeners, I'm just going to say Anthony. I don't want to just call him Anthony. He's from Montana. He hooked me up with the campaign. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to do another show tomorrow. There's a lot to get to. I just can't. Let's do this. Between now and Election Day, let's make Jon Tester getting reelected the entire purpose of my show. Okay? As of today, my show is adopting Jon Tester, the Democratic senator from Montana. Between now and November 5th, all you need to do is focus on Jon Tester. We all need marching orders. We all need to be told what to do. I get marching orders from people I really am afraid of. I'm giving you marching, some of you, I don't want you to be afraid of me, but we all need to be given marching orders. Because we all need to be part of something bigger than ourselves. People always give me marching orders, and it concentrates the mind. I'm giving you marching orders. So, do with it what you will. But I'm giving you marching orders. Between now and Election Day, you must wake up every morning, and the first thing you have to ask is, what did I do today for Jon Tester? Don't worry about Harris versus Trump. She'll be fine. And don't worry about the House, at least if my listeners. Worry about the Senate. If you want Harris's presidency to be successful, it comes down to Jon Tester winning in November. Let the other podcasts or the other activists out there focus on bigger pictures. This is a little show with a relatively small audience. So We need to mobilize on a granular level. We can do this. I'm not a celebrity. I can't go to Montana. If I could lend my name to John Tester, I don't think it would help. But if I were a beloved celebrity, I would love to be able to deliver votes for him by publicly endorsing John Tester. But they really don't, Montana, they don't want outsiders coming in. It pushes them away. So what I can do, they certainly don't want loudmouth New Yorkers coming to Montana. What I can do is urge all my listeners, if you trust me, go to work for John Tester. That's all I can do, is phone bank for John Tester, and I have you, the listeners, to get to work for John Tester, because it all comes down to Montana. If Tester loses, Republicans gain control of the Senate. If you love Kamala Harris, you will do this.
Basically,
for Kamala. Here we go. Sorry. If you love Kamala Harris and Coach Walz, then you need to deliver them a trifecta in November, both houses of Congress. Again, I will be phone banking for Tester on Tuesday, and I will learn more and report back to you. But remember Michelle Obama's speech at the convention? Don't wait for me. Remember Michelle? Go to his website and donate to Tester if you're an American citizen or if you have a green card. Don't wait for me. Contact his campaign office right now, like my listener Anthony did. Michelle Obama said it best last week. Don't wait. Don't wait for the party to call you. You call the party. I just gave you marching orders and a purpose. Listeners to this show now have a clear-cut objective with a specific target date, November 5th. This has a beginning, a middle, and an end. By November 6th, we will know if we succeeded or failed in helping get John Tester reelected and giving Kamala Harris a trifecta. I am urging all of you to block out all the noise. Forget everything else. Focus on John Tester. Unless things open up in Florida, Missouri, or Texas, and they might, and I hope they do, so there isn't too much pressure on Tester, because if the people of Montana believe their vote determines who controls the Senate, some polling shows they're going to vote against Tester. So I'm hoping Florida, Missouri, and Texas open up. But I don't think so. It will all come down to Tester. Let's do this. Let's do this. JohnTester.com. JohnTester.com. Don't wait for me. Go to JohnTester.com and volunteer. Donating money, if you have $5, that's fine. But I keep telling you about the ground game. Phone banking. Knocking on and down doors. Knocking down doors is how you win elections. Donating is fine. They always need money, but they need boots on the ground. If you can go to Montana, go there, but you can also work the phones. That is a ground game. And more importantly, it's good for our mental health. It's good for our mental health to do this. It makes us feel like we have agency in our future. Even if we lose, it's good for our mental health. Anxiety, depression, panic flows from a sense of zero control. You have control. JohnTester.com. You can determine whether or not Kamala Harris can enact her agenda. We cannot push her to the left if we don't have the Senate. Get to work. Go to johntester.com and an hour a week? You can't spare an hour a week for your country? For your country? This is good for you. Your sabers will only remain sharp when you use them. Sharpen your knives by going to work for the Tester campaign, okay? And then after November 6th, we'll have sharp sabers to use for future battles. I have a lot to get to, and I just can't get to it. This has been, I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong, protect the weak. johntester.com between now and Election Day. This has been the mop-up for August, 26, 2024. Thank you for finding me. Please like this episode. It's great if you can subscribe to my channel. And in order to make sure you see the latest, like this specific episode. That way, this is what I understand. If you like this episode, I remain in your feed. Also, hit the notifications bell so you never miss an episode. I cannot stress this enough. Share this episode. If you want to contribute to this program, more than anything, if you believe what I impart should reach other people, then I beseech you, share this episode. Copy the link to this specific show, then paste it into an email, a text message, or on your social media platforms. That's my ground game. It's all I have. You, the listeners, sharing these episodes. I mean, the only reason this show has grown is because of the listeners, Robert Smigel and Sam Cedar. That's it. If you would like so thank you for sharing this. That's the best way to help. If you would like a free transcript of today's show, go to shopdavidfeldman.com, read it, circle some stuff, and then throw it into conversation with people. We have free transcripts going all the way back to May. I am a little behind. The past two shows have been transcribed, but we haven't had time to post them over at shopdavidfeldman.com. I'm doing a lot more shows. I didn't get to half the stuff I wanted to, and so things are falling through the cracks. The most important thing between now and Election Day is I do as many shows as I can. I haven't done thank you notes. Anyway, these transcripts are free thanks to the idiots who purchase garbage over at shopdavidfeldman.com. Like this coffee mug with my worst case scenario map. It shows why Harris is definitely getting to 270, and 270 is all she needs. Please check out shopdavidfeldman.com. It pays some of the bills. Leave a comment. I read all your comments. Thank you to Bob in the chat room. I kept it short tonight. I'm going to do another show tomorrow night. I got a lot of stuff to go over. Things are good. Things are good. Let's keep them that way. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.